6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. McNamara, any changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
Thanks everybody for coming in. We are going to start by opening up to the floor any public comments from citizens regarding tonight's meeting. Okay. Other business? No. Mr. Alden.
Alden, Trailside Road. So I think this is probably year 3 or 4 that we've been talking about this, and at least 2 years or a year and a half since the registry committee sort of concluded its work. And I think the question is still the same. What's the objective? You know, what is the objective of what I've always called a rental registry, but many are calling a short-term rental registry. So there was a few objectives that were put out there, and initially when folks started talking about this, their concern was that short-term rentals were taking all of the affordable housing in town. That every short-term rental that came on was 10 apartments were somehow lost. I think over the years, now that we have data, I think that has been shown to be untrue, that short-term rentals don't overly affect the availability of units. They take some, sure, but I think generally the data shows that most units that are used as short-term rentals were either not long-term rentals to begin with or used part-time, through the year from the owners, so they wouldn't resort back. And I think data also shows that if you were to outright ban short-term rentals, and there wouldn't suddenly be this influx of homes. I do want to preface by saying I don't have short-term rentals, so I don't have a dog in this race, so to speak, but I've been involved in the process here. I was on the committee. And the state actually agrees with the comments I just made that short-term rentals don't greatly impact the availability of long-term rentals and affordable housing. Next piece that we talked about often that comes up is they're unsafe, overcrowded, no egress. There's concerns about units being unsafe. And I think we can all agree that, sure, short-term rentals can be overcrowded at times, maybe more often than not, who knows? It's hard to determine. But I don't think there's any data that shows that short-term rentals, by their nature, are more unsafe than any other rental. In fact, I would argue just the opposite. I would say that long-term rentals are generally more unsafe than short-term rentals, just by the general nature of who owns them, the amount of times that those owners are in those units, and that there's no real process or checks and balances for those to be inspected. Short-term rentals obviously they live and die on their rating, so generally those would tend to be more safe. So another objective that would come in is an income stream, and that's a legitimate objective for the town. The town needs to get creative on where they can source new streams of income. And this may be one of them. But if you're going to do that, you need to be able to defend that. Why are you charging this fee? Where is this money going to? What are the rules around it? And one of the options that may be considered if you go that way is to earmark that money for affordable housing, or a program in town where locals that are having financial troubles could apply for a grant. That money is put aside. I think most folks that have short-term rentals would be happy to contribute to that, knowing that it's going to go to housing as opposed to just in the general budget. And lastly, just to circle back on the unsafe part, we've often heard a lot of arguments that, the overcrowding, the septic systems are overflowing, trash. In my time as the health officer for the town of Ludlow, I've responded to a number of these types of calls. Trash calls, trash piled up on the property, rental issues, no heat, no hot water for weeks, months at a time, lack of egress, no smoke detectors, dog bites, you name it. And there's two common denominators. The first common denominator is not one of those was a short-term rental property, and the other denominator was every one of those was a long-term rental property. So I'll say what I've always said: if you're going to consider a rental registry, it really should be a rental registry. Because if you're trying to do it under the auspice of safety, and you don't include long-term, you're really missing the properties that are the biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Alden. Mr. Couch.
Good afternoon, Alan Couch, 21 Meadow Street. I appreciate Mr. Alden's comments and agree with them. 5 years ago, when I was on the Planning Commission, we brought up a short-term rental registry idea, and it was pre-pandemic, so I'm guessing it was 5 years ago. And the idea was to create a list of people who have properties in town that are renting on a short-term basis. This is nothing new. This has been going on, I've been up here 23 years. This has been going on for 50 years. People renting their properties to skiers on a short-term basis. This is nothing new. So back then on the Planning Commission, our idea was to create a self-reporting checklist of you send out information to people, let them know that yes, your 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house cannot support 15 people. Yes, you need to have hardwired photovoltaic smoke CO detectors to protect the people. It was about informing people who are renting their properties, and the people who are going to adhere to that are the people you don't have to worry about. It's the people that don't conform to that. So the idea was to charge a modest fee, maybe $25 a year, which, people who rent their houses can make that up in a nanosecond. Self-report that, yes, I have replaced the batteries in my smoke detectors. We have egress windows. We have a septic tank, town water, town sewer that can support the number of people on a weekend. Yes, we're not putting 25 people in a 3-bedroom house. And since then, it has exploded into people complaining, like we're overseeing them, we're putting the hammer down on them. That's not what we want here. The rental registry, they go on Airbnb and VRBO, they pay their taxes and whatnot to the state. These aren't the people we're worried about. It's all about information. It's all about informing people that, yes, that room with the tiny little window is not safe for people to sleep in there, which is the same thing when people are selling real estate, when the condo owner says, well, I have a 4-bedroom condo, and the realtor says, no, actually you only have a 3-bedroom condo because that is not a bedroom. So my point is, this has gotten blown out of proportion. This is, we're thinking about charging a modest fee to cover, and I guess the point was that if you register as a short-term rental, that at some point in 5 years, somebody's going to walk through your rental unit and say, yeah, you have beds in a room where there shouldn't be beds. You have smoke detectors that are beeping that don't have battery backup in them. You have smoke detectors that aren't hardwired. It's all about informing people about what is safe. We all know there have been towns, ski towns in the state that have had fires. Knock on wood, we have been fortunate that that has not happened. So we formed a committee. The committee produced a report. We've had input from realtors and homeowners and rental owners. And I think we need to take a step back and go back to what the original plan was and why we brought it up in the Planning Commission 5 years ago. And I'm a little embarrassed that this has been going on for 5 years. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Would any member of the public care to share their opinions on this ongoing issue before the Select Board starts to deliberate? Okay.
I guess, just to throw it out there, we are looking at, across the state of Vermont, Steve Meyer's, possible upwards of 20% tax raises. I agree with the earlier comments. None of these apartments that have been hooked up and are 5 bedrooms are going to come back and be cheap apartments. And I just feel like once you start taking people's property rights away and what they can do with the bedrooms in their house, that's a slippery slope. And I mean, the nice little fee that we pay is our taxes to be here in Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Andrea Goldman, I apologize if I'm late. I'm repeating anything. I was hoping it was a hybrid meeting. So I just, in case it wasn't stated, I just want to repeat and put on the public record. When I was on the Planning Commission, we did a survey. It was responded to by both full-time residents and part-time and non-residents. And when the question was, are there enough housing options for everyone who wants to live in the village of Ludlow, 77% responded no. 77%. By the makeup of the respondents, that included people who are not just full-time here. At the same time, we're constantly hearing that we don't have enough money for different things. I'm not going to start the debate. I believe very much the short-term registry is about the community and health and wellness first and foremost. But at the same time, by the sheer number of short-term rentals that we have in this town, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to say that there is not some impact on the town's resources, whether it be infrastructure or human resources. So if there's going to be a registry, which I believe there should be because of the more fundamental reasons of safety and wellness of the community, then clearly to have some element that also pays for it so that the town isn't hurt further, but that there's a reasonable fee that makes sense, whether it be $250 a year, when we have heard various numbers where that's probably less than one night's rental. so that we as a community can help the safety and protect the infrastructure of our town and have it compensated for by those that are benefiting from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman.
Hi, good evening. Steve Messina, owner at OML and also a partner with Mary Davis Rental and Inside Edge Rentals. The short-term rental registry or rental registry concept is not necessarily something that is that we oppose. However, we would like to understand, as Eric indicated, what is the objective of it. And so we just heard a fee number put out. What is there in exchange for that fee that either owners will receive, or how will those funds be used throughout the town? As far as the drain on the town's resources that the folks place onto the system that come in and visit our town, those individuals are also spending money at local shops, at local restaurants, various places throughout the town. That's creating revenue for the town as well. There's, as well as supporting the owners of those establishments that own here in the town and are paying their taxes as well. So, as this is debated and thought about, I'm very curious as to what is the objective. I've attended several of these meetings. And I'm still at a loss for what the objective of the rental registry is. Is it just to make sure that there's not 10 people in a one-bedroom unit? If that's the case, there's plenty of ways to accomplish that. I know that for our rentals through Inside Edge Rentals, all of those rentals are inspected. They are all certified for the number of folks that are advertised for those units. And if somebody does come to us, and an example was brought up for somebody trying to put 6 people in in one bedroom or something. We do not. We only advertise for what those units are rated for. And I see Noah here. Noah also, I think would support that he applies due diligence to ensure that his rentals are only accommodating and only advertising for what they're approved for. And I'll let him speak for that himself. And as far as the real risk here is less about the short term and more about the long term rentals. There's no control over that right now. And those need to be included in any registry process that's being contemplated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carter.
Hi, I'm Terry Carter. I live at 1821 South Hill. And it was kind of treacherous on the way down, but it took me a while, so I'm late. I just wanted to, I got the wrong one. Julie, can I have that other paper? I just want to speak as chair of the Planning Commission. We did talk about this, and some of the ideas we came up with is we felt permits and registration should be required for short-term rentals. And as far as long-term rentals go, the state has just passed a statute that you cannot regulate long-term rentals because there's such a shortage of them in the state of Vermont. We decided that we were going to propose that, not decided, but we decided as a group that are going to propose to the boards that permits should be required for rentals 1 day a year or greater. Phone and email will be required from the owner, designated professional and or rental agency. Owner address, email, phone will be required for the registry. Occupancy 2 per bedroom, +2 max of 8. 3 bedrooms times 2 +2, less than 8 special requirements for more than 8. Our yearly costs, we hadn't come up with a yearly cost, but we felt it should be tiered per bedroom cost, and a discount for owner occupied, lower rates, and an annual fee. and they should be allowed in all zoning areas. Parking should be on-site only. Insurance was something we hadn't decided on. We were kind of divided on that. Fire safety certificate would be required, because we can't count on the state fire inspection happening, obviously. We did come up with the idea that noise and party restrictions should happen, public decency and volume, and behavior from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. on weekends. The fines we had decided on are $100 a day for infractions and non-registration, $150 violation for the first, $350 for the second, $600 for the third. And the board is also proposing that a company be chosen to enact and enforce these regulations, as our town staff is too small and work too hard to take on these additional tasks. I just wanted to come up and speak for the Planning Commission. And we looked at the time, we looked at what was happening in Plymouth. They already had a registry, Chester, Killington, Woodstock, and Windhall, and based our decisions on looking at how they all decided to do it and what would work for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Ms. Baldwin.
I realize that it sounds like a majority of people who answered the survey believe that short-term rentals are a problem as far as affordable housing goes, but during the presentation that we had here, was it last month, the data that the state has collected disagrees with that, and I think Mr. Alden talked about it, that it made like a 3 or 4% difference, where regulating short-term rentals only didn't affect to the extent that they would need it to bring in long-term rentals. I was looking through the bills in front of the house. There's several of them in here that are not conducive to people wanting to rent their property long-term. One of them is an addition to a no-cause eviction, where a long-term rental owner can't evict a tenant just because the lease expires, unless they're going to rent it to an immediate family member. There's a reciprocal right to attorney fees, so that if for some reason a landlord lost a case in an eviction, they would have to pay the tenant's fees. Yeah, it's an eviction moratorium for no-cause evictions. There's another one too coming up. I'm not sure where that is. Anyway, there was 3 of them that I read about today that are further disincentivizing people like myself from renting long-term. Honestly, I'm terrified. I would love to rent my Airbnb. It's a single-family mobile home. Not a big fancy property. I'd love to give it to a regular, around town, a local. I can't afford to take that risk. I really can't, especially if I can't evict. I have a mortgage, I have taxes, I have maintenance, I have a private septic system that's expensive to maintain because it's on the Jewel Brook. I would love to do that, but things like this, these laws, prohibit me from having the incentive to do that. I can't put my property at risk to lose it in a foreclosure because I can't get my tenants out. The property's been destroyed. I can't afford to fix it. So we rent short-term rental, and we don't charge $1 gazillion. It helps me coming up onto retirement to pay my bills. It's getting really difficult to live here as a retired person with the, 18-20% increase in property taxes this year. There's 2 new surcharges going on to the property taxes this year as well from the legislature. Where does it end? I mean, I would be happy to, I don't mind a permitting process. I think there's a lot of good points that need to be addressed. And I would be more than happy to, get a permit. I don't have a problem with that. Or paying a $500 a year fee for that permit if I know the money is going to be earmarked for something that we need. I think a fund is great for affordable housing when people get into a bind. I think setting up a dam fund to start fixing those dams up there. But to create a rental registry with a third-party software company that's basically a surveillance company, to scrape my personal data, which the board does not need to know, the Planning Commission doesn't need to know. It's intrusive and it's invasive against my privacy, and they scrape 125 points of data every 3 days to make sure how many people are in my short-term rental. It costs upwards of $40,000 a year. I would much rather see the town hire a full-time local person with benefits to run a permitting process and maintain it, and maintain a database with simply just the information that the town needs to know to make sure that I'm maintaining my property and it's safe. I'm totally against this rental registry. You know, we're surveilled and watched at every turn. And I'm totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldwin. A couple points of order. This is for a local rental registry, and it sounded like a lot of those problems were state level. And I'd implore you to write to your congressmen and your senators for that. In terms of the cost, it's more roughly around $26,000. I've heard the $40,000 number thrown around. That's just a point of order. It's $26,000 a year. Are there any other questions? Mr. Alden.
Thank you. Eric Alden, Chelside Road. I wanted to make two comments. I wanted to address one statement that we've heard several times in the Planning Commission meetings, and we just heard it again tonight, and that is that the state will not allow you to regulate long-term rentals. That statement's misleading. What the state has done is they're saying that you can't regulate where they go, but of course you can regulate them. The state already regulates them. Towns regulate them. We have sewage regulations. We have heat regulations. We have occupancy regulations. You know, there's all sorts of regulations that are on long-term rentals. So to say that the state doesn't allow regulations on long-term rentals is misleading. And I just want to make sure with my first statements that I'm on the record that I'm not opposed to a rental registry as long as there's a clear objective. And I would like for those funds to go towards some affordable housing solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alden. Would anybody else care to speak? Okay. Mr. Bates, welcome.
Thank you. I will tell you all that it's getting really slick out there. And do we have anybody from the town that's coming in?
Yes.
Because there was no one by the garage. I didn't know, so.
I agree with Mr. Couch. This has been 5 year long. We've had rental registry committees explore the idea. We've had the Planning Commission explore the idea. This board has listened to multiple meetings surrounding this idea. It seems as though a lot of the citizens care to know what the objective is. So without getting lost in the weeds or belaboring the fact, to us it boils down to safety, number one. It also is regulating a new market. When we don't regulate markets, they tend to get out of control, and I appreciate the gentleman from Inside Edge coming up and saying, hey, we play by the rules, this is how we do it. That's great, but not everybody does that. So that's what the regulations are for, is so everybody's up to those metrics and those markers. So safety, awareness is a huge one. Infrastructure strains, fairness is another one. There's many different avenues here. I've also heard affordable housing. There's studies that disprove that. There's studies that somewhat back that up. Londonderry is one of them. We're not here to discuss that fact because, frankly, that fact doesn't stand next to safety and awareness and compliance and fairness and infrastructure. All those things are very, very important as well. So those are a few of the objectives. And in all honesty, I think we're probably one of the last mountain towns to not have a rental registry or an ordinance of some sort. I may stand to be corrected by the Planning Commission or somebody else, VTSTRA maybe, but I do imagine that we have one of the highest numbers of short-term rental properties per capita, and we don't have a registry. So there's something to think about there too. What does that mean moving forward? What are we exposing ourselves to as a town? Anybody else on the board care to lend an opinion? Mr. McNamara.
Sir.
What are we looking to do tonight?
As we, I brought up at a board meeting in January, scheduling this meeting. My purpose, and I think the consensus of the board's purpose was to make a decision. It's been brought up. This has been going on for some time. I think we're all in on that. And the decision that I feel the board needs to make is one of two options, is that the board feels that this is instituting some sort of a registry permitting process is in the best interest of the town. You vote to institute that. You ask the Planning Commission to draft and work and craft that process, which then becomes brought to the board, and that's discussed, and that process goes there. That is the next logical step in this process, if that is the appetite of this board. If it's not, you vote no, we all go home, and we don't talk about this, because that's where we're at. So it needs, either one of those two options, in my opinion, is what needs to happen tonight, because again, it can be continued to be talked about. All these points are valid, but the board is tasked with making that decision. Is this in some form the best option for the town? And then the Planning Commission takes it, crafts what they think, and just like with any ordinance or plan, it is discussed, there's public hearings, et cetera, and eventually we come to a final document, or it's no, and the board sits here, votes no, and that's it.
Thank you for that clarification. This will be the second meeting that we've conducted. And in addition, we also had the Rental Registry Committee that expired, I think, September 22, if memory serves. You weren't here yet, but no. I believe that to be the time. Well, I guess we would be looking for a motion.
I would like to see something from the planning board first. I know the way you just explained it, Brennan, but I'd like to know, what you're thinking of changes, what you're charging, because we've gone through all kinds of numbers. We've gone through all kinds of scenarios. I want to know exactly what we're voting on. And this is, to me, has to be about safety and only safety. So until I move forward, I'd like to see, there's been talk out there, some $100 a bedroom. There's been $500 a bedroom. I'd like to know exactly what we're getting into before I say yes.
I respect and appreciate that position, and I think that is a wise thing to do. I do think that this board owes the Planning Commission in particular a direction. So I think that tonight is either move forward and draft something that then we look at and approve or send to the voters, or we say no thank you and we scratch this off our agenda and our docket. My personal feeling is I think it's warranted. I make no bones about that. I've been the one pushing this agenda for the last little bit because I believe it an important piece of our community. I am only one voice up here, though, and I want to hear everybody's voice, and I want to give a clear direction to or no to the Planning Commission. I think that that's what's required of this board tonight. Mr. Couch.
I just had a question about a point of order. I understand you can send this back to the Planning Commission. Could John Q. Public present a proposal to the board and go through the public hearings and go through that process without sending it back to the Planning Commission? So, for example, could somebody from the town come up with a plan, short-term rental registry proposal, and bring it to you without going back through the rigmarole of the Planning Commission?
I would imagine if we tasked the Planning Commission with something, they would have to be the ones doing the heavy lifting, but I would imagine that open...
Or perhaps John Q. Public could go to the Planning Commission and say, here's what we propose.
I think that would be
That's probably
okay.
the best way.
I'm just trying to cut out the red tape to sort of streamline things, because we all know you don't want to see the sausage being made.
We've been in a limbo where we haven't given direction to the Planning Commission, and they've been kind of piecing it together and giving us some updates.
Right.
After tonight, they're going to have a clear direction one way or another. If the direction is to pursue the rental registry, I would implore any and all members of the public to have their input heard at the Planning Commission meetings.
And as I said earlier, you know, this is like, from the original idea, is just like ballooned into more than it was ever imagined. So, okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Mr. Myers.
Steve Myers, 81 Andover. Sorry, I got a bit of a thing. The safety officer and the presentation that we saw, we're basically, all I hear is that we need it to be safe, and that's why we want to do this. So between the fact that they're judged and the ratings are what drives business for a short-term rental, they are safer. We're hearing that 10 different ways. So if the entire objective is safety, we're doing it. We're doing really good. You can't legislate morality. You know, put up a speeding sign, people go 20 miles an hour past it. There's ways around this. If anyone wants to get around it, it's not real hard. You write a lease for a year and then rent it on Facebook without going to Airbnb. There's a million ways around it. I'm just a firm believer in property rights staying as firm as they are.
I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Myers. Property rights are a sacred thing, especially in this United States. There is a difference between property rights and renting your home or property out on the internet and allowing strangers to stay there. I do think there's a clear distinction there. And regulating something, there's always going to be people that can bypass things, short circuit it, cut around it, cheat it, however you want to look at it. But the parameters are in place and there are metrics in place to try to standardize it, to make it all safer, everybody safer in that one avenue. So I've heard a lot of discussion about long-term rentals. Long-term rentals are already regulated, like Mr. Alden said. There needs to be more looking into those and understanding what is not happening and what is happening on those. But this is a separate issue than the long-term rentals. They're separate issues. Mr. Alden.
Thank you. Eric Alden, Trailside Road. With all due respect to Mr. Bates, pushing this back to the Planning Commission with no direction is a repeat of what's happened over the past few years. So I agree with Mr. Hedrick that a decision, yay or nay, to give that Planning Commission direction. If you say yes, now they have something to work with. Okay, we have direction, the board wants a proposal. If we just kick it back and say we want to see something, that's just more of the same. And the other comment is, yes, many surrounding towns have rental registries. There's no data that I've seen that shows that those units are any safer because they have a rental registry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brandt.
So we already have everything in place for safety. People that are going to cheat the system are going to do it whether we have a registry or not. And I don't think we're ready to decide. We shouldn't decide just because other towns have it. None of those registries are the same. It needs to become statewide, and they should all be the same. A uniform short-term, if they want a short-term rental registry, should be a uniform short-term rental registry. Just like the state has their book on how to inspect a long-term rental. It should be no different. All those laws are in place, and I think we'd be overstepping our authority to have them.
Go ahead.
Steve Messina, OML, and Inside Edge of Mary Davis. Justin just made a comment that, you know, I just want to go back to and point out. So he originally indicated that the objectives that the citizens were asking about what the objectives were. He threw out 3: safety, fairness, and compliance. And then moments ago just said that the long-term rentals aren't an issue, and there's processes in place for those. Well, I go back to what the objectives of the registry are. If the objectives are safety, fairness, and compliance, then that should apply to both short-term and long-term. And until we're ready, until the town's ready to tackle that in totality, then a registry is premature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sino. I actually disagree with that. I think that not regulating a certain sector, which would be the STRs, just because the LTRs are not regulated or not inspected enough, is not making the short-term rentals more safe by saying, well, the long-term rentals aren't being looked at, so why put the rental registry in the short-term rentals? Well, because we can at least put that in there and then work on the other ones. Ms. Baldwin.
There's also a bill up in the legislature to create a statewide rental registry that's going to include long-term rentals and short-term rentals, and that any data that's collected in the town is going to be sent up to the state. So Mr. Brandt had a good point that this is just a duplication and an expense that the state is probably going to do anyway because they have a supermajority. Governor Phil Scott vetoed this bill several sessions ago, but now that there's a supermajority, the likelihood of this passing is pretty good. So that's a really good point.
Which will then take the onerous off the town and put everything into the state's hands.
Yes.
Mr. Sinu.
So the comment, Justin, that was just made is that the short terms, in your opinion, are less safe than long terms.
No, I did not say that.
Okay, then I'm perplexed as to the differentiation that you're making between the short term and the long term. You want to look at a short term and see what it looks like on the inside? Go on Airbnb. Look at the 40 pictures that are out there. Go on VRBO. Go on Slopeside. I'm sorry, not Slopeside. You go on Inside Edge. Go on any of the rental sites that are out there, Vacasa, and look at that unit. You can see all the pictures on it. Find me those pictures for a long-term rental.
Yeah, they don't exist.
That's advertised on Craigslist. Doesn't exist. So which one is safer? The one with dramatic visibility and posted in 4 or 5 different locations?
That's a good point.
Or the one with zero visibility that's being rented on Craigslist and you have no idea how many people are in there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Astrid Lehman, 16 Commonwealth Avenue. I had been following this discussion for a while now, and one of the things that I did bring up to, I believe it was Noah Webster. Is that somebody?
I don't know.
Noah Webster?
I forget his last name. Somebody named Noah Schmidt.
We have a Noah.
I'm sorry. I know a different premise. My premise was, because I am a member of the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association, I thought it was a good thing that there was a group of people that were like-minded, that had positive thoughts about their short-term rental, and wanted to make sure that it was, uniform, safe, all the things you're talking about, was that if you do, in fact, think about the short-term rental process, and you do want to charge a fee or whatever associated with that registry, that if you looked at it from a more positive perspective, making it a voluntary joining, and then having the town or the village use that as a positive perspective for renters, saying, we, the town, have these people on our registry, and they do a good job, and you should rent with them. You are then actually helping the short-term rental person, and you're putting a positive spin on it, and you're achieving the goals of safety. So it doesn't have to be punitive, which really is the way it came out originally in its original form, and that's the way it felt, okay? It felt invasive and punitive. But if you ever go forward with this, and I think that at some point you might, you should try and think of it in a positive way for the people involved. And my second point is that you have a number of ski clubs in this town. It was something I brought up before. How are they regulated for safety? Do they have bunk beds? Like, that seems to be a big complaint. Do they have criteria that they must meet as a club for numbers of personnel per room on property and sewer, etc.? I don't know, but it seems like there is as much of a short-term rental in many ways as any of the short-term rentals that rent to small families. My house accommodates 2 families of 4. That makes it possible for middle-class people to enjoy a sport, and it perpetuates skiing because it's very expensive. So when you add the cost of the ticket and then you add the cost of an expensive stay, it's for rich people. And you're excluding people that might want to participate in a good outdoor activity, and it's a short-term outlook for your business plan, because let's face it, like it or not, this town exists because of that mountain, and there's no getting around it. I've been coming here since 1981, and that's what brings people to Ludlow. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Lehman. To that effect, that gentleman who spoke at the end of that last meeting had great points. I agree. And this has been a 5-year thing that we've been going through. And a lot has happened in the 5 years. A lot of things have changed. This is by no means, I don't want it to be punitive or anything, because Ludlow doesn't have hotels or even nearly enough beds to house the amount of tourism that comes up here. So there should be no real discussion on banning short-term rentals or regulating them into the ground or making them not want to be here because we simply need short-term rentals and other rentals. We need more of all those things. So I wanted to be clear on that, and I did like that gentleman's point at the end.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
As a past member of the Grumman Ski Club, that house has been inspected by the fire marshals. It has wired smoke detectors. It has egress windows. It has been inspected. I cannot speak for the other ones.
They do have their own set of laws, and they get fire marshal inspected yearly, and they have sprinklers, and they're well regulated and overseen. I do know that.
It does provide people who don't have a lot of money a place to go where they're with friends for cheaper lodging.
I have no issue with that.
Oh.
The point is that if you're going to treat a short-term rental one way, how different are they actually from the short-term rental?
You wouldn't want their regulations.
That big differentiation is what is interesting. No.
Mr. Tucker.
I don't think that, excuse me, that the board has ever said, kind of to piggyback off some comments, of banning or trying to regulate and make things so punitive. I think the clear message, despite what some people may have said, is I think this key word we've all said is safety. I think you would be not looking at it with your eyes wide open and say that the amount of people who come to this town puts a strain on potential resources that are life-saving. We have been very fortunate not to have had a catastrophe of a structure fire at 2 a.m. on the worst snowstorm, potentially in those bedrooms that we've heard about with no egress window, with maybe more people than the house should have had. Now, what is that percentage? I think if you're here tonight, that you're probably in the percentage which is the majority of people who follow the rules. But if you drive around town, you'd see a property that clearly doesn't seat or fit 15 cars. There's very few properties in the town that number of people can be accommodated in. And I think, appreciate Mr. Alden's comments that none of the calls he has gone on were short-term rentals of septic issues and neighbors' complaints. But I think the answer is most people who live here don't complain. They don't know that outlet. I think part of this, if we choose to go forward, would be a way for potential complaints to have someone to talk to. As someone who lives next to a short-term rental, who's had problems with neighbors repeatedly, I don't like calling the police when they're up at 2 a.m. blasting music so loud that I can't sleep. I think it's fair to ask if you operate a business that you pay some sort of fee if you're receiving a service. And it's been brought up, what would that service be? I think the continual good service of fire rescue, ambulance, police, potentially other infrastructure that is affected by all of the increased use that is brought forth from a short-term rental. I think it would be fair to say that if a building is a short-term rental, it has more traffic that brings to the town, which is a great thing, than if the home was occupied by a regular family. Very few 5-bedroom homes are actually occupied by 5 occupants in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
I appreciate your point, and I'd just like to make the point that as far as services go, every property in this town pays property taxes, and part of your property taxes are all, in fact, those services. Short-term rentals do not pay less property taxes, and if they are valued high, they pay higher property taxes. So they, in fact, are using services that they pay for. An additional registry doesn't make that much of a difference for those services, or shouldn't, because we're already paying for them. Education for children that we don't have in a school district, which everybody does, we know that, but it's still paid, and for ambulance and fire services that are in our tax budget. Is that correct or not?
That is correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate your comments, and I'm not saying by any means that they don't pay their taxes, but I think if one individual or group uses more of the resource or potentially demands that there be more of a resource beyond that same level that the single person that owns a 4-bedroom home that they only occupy that by themselves potentially equates to that this, what would be deemed a modicum fee, which there's been numbers described as, would potentially come to help offset the cost versus putting that on all the taxpayers. And the state does have programs for that set up for when there's additional development, that when let's say a development would be built, that there would be a fee associated to that. We see that currently with the fire equipment fund. When big projects are built within the town, they are charged a per square footage fee to assist on certain projects. Thank you.
Just like to add one more point to that. I have the short-term rental. It gets rented on weekends. So 2 out of 7 days it's used. Those are 5 days of non-use. And in the spring, there's no use. In the summer, it's limited use. Fall, it picks up again. It's very seasonal, and it seems like a lot of use in intense periods. But if you amortize that usage out over the year, it's probably less than what a regular full-time family would use.
Ms. Baldwin?
I agree. Our property's probably rented 3 or 4 months out of the year. The rest of the time, my adult children and my grandchildren use it. But George had some really good points, and I think permitting is a great idea, but if George mentioned that it's a small amount, we all kind of know where these properties are. We know where the problems are. Is it necessary to have a surveillance company scraping our data every 3 days, 125 points of data that the town doesn't need to know? And even if it's $26,000 on a rental registry, maybe a part-time job for someone to handle the complaints, make it known to, some kind of a communication out to the town that if you're having a problem with a short-term rental in your neighborhood, here's the number to call. I just think it's way overreach. It's way overreach to institute this AI service to surveil people. And if it's about regulating a business that's not regulated like other businesses, and we really care about safety, we'll regulate and get surveillance companies scraping everybody's data. And I think short-term rentals are being singled out. I'm not going to explain why I think that, but that's how it appears to me.
Thank you.
Steve Messina, OML. I just want to comment on the demand for resources. And George, you used an example of a 4-bedroom house. So let's just say that you have that 4-bedroom house is occupied by a family of 5. Okay. So that 4-bedroom house is going to have 1,825, nights or potential demand for resources. Okay, that's 5 people times 365 days a year. Okay. Let's say that 4-bedroom house is rated for 8 people on a short-term basis. Okay, so even if it was rented every night for the entire ski season, it's 960. So it's actually less demand. Because as was pointed out, those vacation rentals are not occupied every single day of the season, of the year. So to counter your point, Mr. Tucker, I believe it's less resources that are demanded by the town. It may be in a more compact time, but it's less resources in totality. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Alden.
Love to hear from other folks in there. Just a couple more points. To Mr. Tucker, he made some great points. One of the things that was said was, that the folks that are doing a short term, if you're doing rentals here, it's a business. That's no different than long term. If they're renting, they're running a business. So I don't see how you differentiate between short term folks running a business or folks that are renting. It's a business either way. Again, I'm not opposed to a registry of some sort. If this board does decide tonight to move forward, I implore you to give the Planning Commission clear directions on what you want. Clear directions on what you want, so that we don't go around meeting before we come up with a plan. And I'd also ask that if you do move forward, that those funds are earmarked for something specific to what the feeling is that short-term rentals are using town resources. So earlier I said earmark it towards affordable housing, or earmark it towards, helping local residents pay their bills, or earmark it towards new equipment for the fire or police department. Something that is being claimed that short-term rentals are directly affecting, on the town. And I had one more, but I forgot it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alden. Ms. Goldman.
Eric and Alden and I agree on something about, it happens once in a while, about earmarking what the money would be used for. But I just want to make sure that I hear a lot of arguments that sound like it's a binary choice of registry or, that it's no short-term rentals. It's not. You can have both. You can have the registry and the short-term rentals. And I do want to say, to be fair, I've had short-term rentals. If I had the space, we'd be doing short-term rentals too, and I would happily sign on to a registry and pay a modicum amount, let's say $250, to help safety, to help infrastructure, to help the town that needs money. I think that's very reasonable to ask compared to the price that we've been hearing, and I encourage everybody to please keep doing the short-term rentals and making the money from it. Agreed. Let the town at least manage this process, and please don't kick this down the road again. Don't kick the can down the road. We've been discussing this for probably 5 years. We've been studying this, and if the vote turnout is just about then sending it and legislating it, then with all due respect, you don't need to hear first what it is. If the vote is just, should we, but then it would be subject to finding the right regulations, which, by the way, the Planning Commission has already spent a tremendous amount of time on. So they're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman.
Terry.
Ms. Carter. It's cold.
I know I brought this up the last time, but I just wanted to reiterate it because we're hearing a lot of reiterations tonight. We did survey, the Planning Commission did survey the village of Ludlow. We sent a postcard to every single person on the village checklist, every single voter. And I sit on the Board of Civil Authorities, so I work at every election. And I happened to work at the village election and was told usually only about 49 people vote. This last year, a lot more voted. We got out the vote. But 297 people responded to this survey that live in the village. And maybe some that don't live in the village, because we also took non-residents' responses. And of those 297 people, 60% of them do want a registry for short-term rentals, and only 20% of them don't. And of the people that said yes, 80% of them thought we should charge an annual fee, and only 10% of them didn't think we should. And the number one thing that people wanted the fee to go toward was housing. That was 77 people said housing, 28 people said public safety, 12 people said recreation, 11 people said transportation, and then other people had, there were other responses like art and music or the schools or EV chargers and stuff like that. So I just wanted to give you some facts about, we didn't base our short-term rental on not asking the community what they thought.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Mr. Silvestri.
Ryan Silvestri, 57 Pleasant Street Extension. I was on the Planning Commission and on the Rental Registry. I think we've given you pretty clear objectives. Fire and health, safety, and education is really where we're aiming this. The fees, sure, we can always talk. They're talking an average $500 a night is the average rental fee, per rental in town. But at the last couple budget meetings, the town is in desperate need of revenue streams. Huge projects looming, huge investments that need to be made for infrastructure, whether it be dams, ambulance, fire service. To my understanding now, the ambulance service can't keep all their apparatus under a roof, and they're sleeping in basically what's been described to me as a closet, behind the fuel tanks. We have a fire station that if it floods, we can't get our apparatus out. We have to get it out. We can't house it any longer. So these are monstrous expenses that are looming, for this town. And with education tax rates, everyone's afraid to increase municipal tax rates, so that leaves other revenue streams as an avenue to get these done. and they're going to have to be done. So fire, health, safety, education, fee that should be earmarked for, I think, infrastructure improvements throughout the town. And as a member of the Planning Commission, we are absolutely ready. If you were to task us with this, it would be a pretty quick turnaround because we've spoken at this at length, and we have a pretty clear outline as to how we would move forward. The other thing is just to speak towards the state taking this over with a statewide registry. I think the town would lose out if that's what we would wait for. I think local control over this is monstrous, as well as any fees that are collected would stay to the town. If the state's collecting fees, it goes to the state. We already send enough money to the state of Vermont, and I don't have really the greatest amount of trust that they would be able to facilitate operation of that caliber. And I think it's a lot of smoke, in my opinion. So keep it local, fire, health, safety, education, and earmarked for infrastructure, I think would be the most compact and well-packaged argument to have a rental registry in town. And I'm absolutely on board with, I've always been trying to call it the rental registry, not STR registry, because it should encompass all rentals. They all have the same issues and they all need to be looked at the same way. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. I agree. We have a lot of big ticket items coming down, so we have to think about that. All right, we've been discussing this in open forum for about an hour. I think it might be time to make a decision here, gentlemen. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns that anybody would like to air?
I have an appreciation for the fact that you do have a lot of infrastructure issues, but whatever money is collected shouldn't be for infrastructure that is for everyone, but placed on a revenue stream of a certain group of people. I think that you should really consider the local options tax, which affects everyone, and it affects everyone fairly. Everyone will then benefit from those local option tax monies that will go to what your needed projects are. But to take one segment of your population out because you believe they have a revenue stream that they can afford to pay money into your budget is not fair. And I think that that's the real crux of the matter here. Treat everybody the same. As a property owner, I'm a stakeholder in your community. Just because I don't live here every day doesn't mean that I don't care about what's going on here. My house could have been just as affected as anybody's house that was flooded. Just because I wasn't on site doesn't make me different from the people who experienced it here. I had the same worries and concerns. So I appreciate that you have infrastructure issues, but the fact that you want to just single out one group of people for a revenue stream is not right.
Thank you, Ms. Lehman. I think we should be totally transparent. There is absolutely 0% chance that a short-term rental registry would pay for even a percentage, maybe a 1% of that dam project or infrastructure project, just to be totally clear. Okay. Do we have a motion? Is there anybody else that would like to do this? Now's the time. Okay. Any board member wish to put forth a motion?
No, not me.
I would put forth a motion that we stop using Granicus and we do not pursue the short-term rental. I don't think we're ready to deal with that.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt. Do I hear a second? when he spoke about those at the last meeting, saying that they were open information that they're grabbing. So I'm going to say no for mine. But we're not voting yet, but we are going to vote very soon. So, anybody else want to discuss? Okay.
This is a tough decision. It really is. I mean, this town is really split on this. And there are some privacy issues here.
You vote what you think is right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
George, I didn't hear yours.
I was a nay.
You're a nay. So it was 3 nays?
2 nays to 1 yay.
2 nays to 1 nay.
Nay.
We're in a dead heat. 2 to 2.
It's a no vote.
Nay.
We have 2 nays on the floor and 2 yays on the floor.
Nay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nay.
I misheard you. I'm so sorry. That's 3 nays to 1 yay. The motion passes.
No, the motion doesn't pass.
Sorry, my goodness. I'm gonna take this from the top. There's 3 nays to 1 yay. The motion does not pass. Thank you, Alicia.
I said nay.
He said yay.
I said yay.
Because the motion on the floor is to stop Granicus and do not pursue the rental registry.
With Granicus?
Nay is against that motion, yes.
I voted nay because I don't want to end this completely.
Okay.
Okay, so. Yes, so I'm gonna clarify what just happened. Mr. Brandt put forth he would like to stop Granicus and not pursue the rental registry. That was the motion on the floor. Myself, George Tucker, Scott Bates voted nay on that, with Mr. Brandt voting yay. So that motion that he proposed did not pass. So that means that we're still going to move forward with the Granicus and pursue a rental registry. We have not made that motion currently. Yes, Mr. Silvestri.
Could I ask the board to make a new motion to move forward and make it clear as to what the desire of the board is?
Yes, we will make another motion. Thank you. I would like to make a motion to not necessarily renew Granicus, because I believe that it's up to the Planning Commission and the members of different boards and the members of the community to decide who best to represent. So I'm going to leave Granicus out of this motion, but I would like to put forth the motion that we as a select board task the Planning Commission with crafting a very no-nonsense, concise, clear to the point rental registry program. No frills, no getting lost in the weeds, very straightforward implementation.
I'll second.
Mr. Tucker seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Schmidt.
Looking for a little clarification. How does this affect the village? A joint board meeting was agenda. Is the village trustees going to vote separate? Or is this just for the town and not the village proper?
That is a great question, Mr. Schmidt. We are 2/3 of the village trustees today, so we do represent a quorum. I believe that they'll be done separately with separate motions. This will be applied towards the town via the select board. And thank you for the clarification. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yay.
Aye.
Nay. Wish I stayed sanding. This is gonna be bare bones, nothing. Yeah, nay. I can't do that. Nay.
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 Okay, so we have 2 yeas and 2 nays. Somebody have a different motion that they'd like to present? Mr. McNamara, what exactly happens at a undecided?
My understanding that a tie is a no vote.
Okay.
So the motion fails, so at this point, it would be done.
Mr. Polonen?
Justin, my question is, if the planning committee drafts, it goes back to the select.
To approve.
Review. So ultimately.
You would, this is,
The final step, correct?
this is just giving you guys the authority to pursue a rental registry program.
So it would be moving the wheels forward
Correct.
momentarily.
Yes, this would not create a rental registry tonight. That is not what is happening. Okay, well, I've never been a part of a no vote, and I'm chairing this meeting, so I'm unsure how to proceed, Mr. McNamara.
It's a no vote.
Okay.
So as far as the board would be concerned, that by a no vote, the board's not issuing any directives for a registry, and the discussion is done.
Okay. Do we have any other business? I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Oh, Ms. Napoli, come on up. Would you use the mic, sorry?
This is just a comment. I've been a realtor for many years, and I've spoken to legislators in this state, and all the short-term rental people remit room and meals tax. It would be very easy for the state to mail a letter to every person that remits taxes to say, hey, we have safety rules, fire safety rules, and I know that your objective is safety, and we need to educate short-term rental owners. Some of them don't even know that there are fire safety regulations. The state has never kind of embraced that, and maybe the town of Ludlow could embrace that and send every taxpayer a letter saying, hey, if you're doing short-term rentals, you need to abide by the fire safety rules. They are there, they're in place already. So I know a rental registry is trying to protect that, but those rules are already in place. So anyway.
Thank you. Other business? Executive session.
What are the trustees doing?
The trustees are gonna, we're gonna be one-on-one again, but we're gonna go through that formal process very soon. Thank you. Executive session?
No, sir.
Okay. This is a special joint meeting, and I am a select board member as well as a member of the village trustees because I live in the village. Mr. Brandt is as well. Mr. Brandt, you did make a motion earlier. Would you like to do that motion again as a village trustee member?
Okay, wait
Let's
a
live
minute,
it
let me
again.
go back. Oh, my God. Oh, where is it?
That motion,
Oh, wait a minute.
that we not use Granicus. and
Stop using Granicus,
we
do not pursue a short-term rental.
Registry.
I will second that motion. Open for discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. We're at a split, which means no action will be taken. Yes, Ms. Pullinan.
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
Yes, I said if you have a high vote, a motion fails.
And that motion would have failed, which is to stop Granicus and do not pursue the rental. As you can probably tell, folks, we are a very split board, and we are unable to move forward in this direction. And I apologize that this issue just seems to be a little too involved and a little too it's become an individualistic thing and not a holistic community approach, and I'm sorry for the direction or the lack of direction that this board has given to the community members, but that is just where we're at. So yes, the motion failed, but if I was to craft another motion, it would again do the same thing. So point of order taken. I don't know where to move from here in order. I can just create another motion, it'll not pass, and then we can do that. Mr. Schmidt.
I think the boards owe it to those who attended and to the town to have full boards, and at the next meeting, vote on, bring this up and do that, because you do not have full boards, and you will then make a decision with everybody, with all your members
I
here.
appreciate and respect that input, and I think that that would be great. These boards have had years to think about this issue and do something or not do something, and I think the inaction is where the action is.
But if these boards agree to put it on your agenda, and you have 5 and 3, you will end up with a decision.
Okay.
And I think you owe it to this group, and you owe it to the town to do that. It's disappointing you couldn't make a decision, because you will have so many opportunities to adjust and say no.
I hear you.
And
I know.
by having it get started, because the process will be some type of ordinance, and the voters can go and do a petition and have that voted down later if they wanted to.
Beauty of democracy, I understand.
There's so many opportunities, but to not even get it started is disappointing after all this was, discussed. But I think you owe it to commit to your agendas in February to put this on and to vote it. And it's going to take one of you to tell the town manager. It's going to take the boards to say you want to do that. But that will be a way to get this one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Bruce, I love you, I agree with you, but we have been doing this for 5 years, as everyone knows, and unfortunately, it seems to be just my opinion. In Ludlow, if something doesn't go the way people like it the first vote, we vote again. The school, Jackson Gore, we vote again, until it goes the way of, we have a vote, we have a decision, board members cast their done, let's be done with this. We've spent so much time when there's so many bigger fish to fry, in my opinion, again.
I would agree with that. If you have a quorum to take legal vote, and you just did, that's the decision. To keep trying to manipulate the quorum to get a different outcome, I don't think is fair to the public. The other board members could have been here tonight.
There won't be new board members by February, March is the vote. I'm going to pose one more motion, and while I agree with us, nothing will bother me more than kicking buckets on certain issues, and this is a hell of a punt. We have kicked this thing as far down the line as we can possibly take it. So I want to be done with this topic. We have much, much, much more things to accomplish in this town, and this is eating up a lot of the bandwidth. And I see the same folks here week in and week out and month after month voicing their opinions, and I love that, but we need to move on. So I'm going to do one more motion, and then we're going to hopefully be done with this. And the motion I would like to make is, in our February meeting, we are going to hopefully bring this back up, and we are going to make a motion once and for all to end it, because while I agree with what the individuals just spoke, I also agree with Mr. Schmidt in the fact that we have 4 people that are deadlocked, and, you know, 2/3 of these boards aren't here. So, while that's unfortunate, I think we owe it to do it.
Excuse me for 1 second. You're saying at our February meeting. Are you speaking right now as select board? Let's keep these separate.
I'm speaking as a select board chair, yes. I would like to pose a motion to have this be agenda item number 1 on February's meeting, and to vote on it immediately in the February meeting. And that's my motion. Do I have a second?
If and only we have a full, both boards.
I hope that's the case. I seriously hope that's the case. But yes, that's my motion. Do you second it?
If we have 2 full boards, that's the best I can do.
So you
If
could-
they're not a
you
full
could
board,
amend-
then we're just going through the same thing.
You could amend the motion, and he has to accept the amendment to the motion.
The meetings in February will be a full board of select board and a full board of village trustees.
Okay, so, sorry, but if one of them's sick, then this motion wouldn't work.
Right.
And then we're done again, or we're waiting until the consensus?
Then we gave it our best shot. My motion is to do it at the February meeting, and hopefully all members are present. If they're not, Mr. Bates just made an amendment, it would be null and void at that point. We're not taking questions currently. We're going to get through this motion, and then we'll do questions, I promise. Any other discussion on this?
Can you just read back the motion?
Yes, the
Amendment,
motion
please.
is agenda line item number 1 on the February meeting of the Select Board and on the February meeting of the Village Trustees, as long as they're fully attended by the members, will be voted upon whether or not to move forward with a short-term rental registry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Scott, do you accept that motion as amended?
If all members are here,
We put
I would
that-
do it one more time.
If all members-
Just to be fair,
Point of order, please.
Mr. Alden.
I'd suggest that you just double-check your rules and procedures, because what it appears is happening here is that folks are unhappy with the vote that was taken. There's procedures in place to have a quorum. If you have a quorum, you can vote. You don't then, if something is approved or not approved, so if this was approved tonight, would you be making a motion to have another vote with the full board? I'm not sure that you would. I would ask that you check procedurally, because what you're doing is trying to change the outcome of a vote when you have a quorum.
I appreciate your
That
point of order
would
in
be-
saying that.
That would be as if you were having an election.
Mr. Alden.
And you didn't like who was
Mr.
elected
Alden,
and have an
please
election
refrain.
again.
Please refrain.
Thank you.
I am only presenting this because it is our due diligence. I find this to be hung. 2 nays, 2 yays. We've been battling this for 5 years.
is it?
Okay, so you know what? Your voices are, we understand what you're saying. So let's go ahead and make this motion and be done with it. You guys, I don't want to do any more point of orders. We're going to vote on this. It's either going to be defeated or it's not going to be.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. Robert's.
Question.
Yes, Ms. Goldman.
If there's a stalemate, if the motion doesn't go through, it seems to me we are exactly where we were. I'm asking, where we were before. There is nothing failed, nothing passed that said don't move forward, nothing passed that said don't move forward. Is that correct?
If I wanted to, I could I could reword a motion, and then it could be split again, And we could say, well, that motion didn't pass and it's in pro, so what do we do now? So it's all semantics at the end of the day. It's how you phrase it. Please enlighten.
So if a motion, there's a difference between, no motions passed tonight.
No motions have passed.
So therefore, the town and the village have not spoken against anything. It's not a no vote, it's that nothing changed tonight. I believe that that's legally what just occurred.
That's correct. It's a phrase of the motion. The motion was, and you're correct, Ms. Goldman.
So then, when we say there's no votes, actually, this just negated the entire meeting. Nothing changed.
Ms. Baldwin.
While we rehashed all the same things as we always do in these meetings, the other 2/3 of the boards that are not here didn't hear the discussions tonight. So they'll be voting on things with not all the information that everybody had tonight. There's been some new people here, new comments that were really important and relevant. So you're going to be asking all the other board members now to vote on information that they don't have. And a tie vote is a no vote. That's Robert's Rules of Order. I'm not sure which one it is, but the vote is the vote.
We understand Robert's Rules of Order. It's also dependent on how the motion was presented and worded. Anybody else would like to speak on points of order here? Okay. The motion stands. I'm not withstanding that motion, withdrawing that motion. So we can vote on it if we'd like, and then we can adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
George, I'm sorry, you said nay, right?
Nay.
Said nay.
So
Mind if I make a
now
comment?
Most certainly.
I do appreciate what you said, Bruce. But to the best of my knowledge, all board members were aware of the meeting.
And that's true.
And we are tasked as a voted person by the body that we represent to make decisions. And if you're not happy with the decision that was made, you're all voters here, and you can vote with your, literally vote. Elections are coming up, and I do believe that though the board might be deadlocked on a decision, to vote to bring in a potential another vote would be, by one not showing up means a vote in itself. Thank you.
With that being said, I vote nay as well.
One more point. I almost didn't come here tonight either because some of us work in these conditions. You know, I'm not defending Brett, but he's out there standing right now. And to say he's not here because he could have been here, probably this whole meeting should have been canceled tonight. For those who haven't been out there in the last hour,
it's bad.
It is slick.
Yep, it's bad.
It's not good weather.
And by no way am I trying to call out the board members that
No,
are
I know.
not here.
I wasn't saying that.
And I do agree that there might have been a good reason to potentially cancel the meeting due to the weather. And I was very sad to see that the whole board was not here to make this decision.
Things happen. Okay, the motion didn't pass. We're going to move to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.